Thousands of years before the arrival of Europeans, the North American continent teemed with life and culture. Diverse indigenous peoples thrived across the land. From the Arctic to the Southwest, they hunted, gathered, and farmed. They developed sophisticated societies with unique languages, traditions, and beliefs. These first Americans lived in harmony with nature, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of the land. Their story is the foundation upon which the history of the United States is built. The arrival of Europeans in the late 15th century marked a turning point. Christopher Columbus's voyages, while seeking a westward route to Asia, instead opened the door to a new world. This encounter, however, had devastating consequences for the indigenous populations. European diseases against which they had no immunity ravaged their communities. Conflicts over land and resources further decimated their numbers. The arrival of Europeans marked the beginning of a long and painful chapter for Native Americans. By the 17th century, the British had established a firm presence along the Atlantic coast of North America. 13 colonies, each with its own distinct character and history, emerged as centers of trade, agriculture, and religious expression. The southern colonies, with their fertile soil and warm climate, developed economies based on cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo. This agricultural system, however, relied heavily on the forced labor of enslaved Africans, forever staining the soul of the nation. As the 18th century progressed, tensions between Great Britain and its American colonies escalated, fueled by a complex interplay of economic grievances, political ideologies, and a burgeoning sense of American identity. The British government, burdened by debts incurred during the French and Indian War, sought to extract greater revenue from its colonies through a series of taxes and regulations. The colonists, accustomed to a large degree of self-governance, viewed these measures as an infringement upon their rights as Englishmen. The cry of no taxation without representation became a rallying cry, articulating their belief that they should not be subjected to taxes imposed by a parliament in which they had no voice. Section 5. Forging a Nation, the Birth of the United States. The year 1775 marked a pivotal turning point in the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies. With tensions at a fever pitch, armed conflict erupted in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, igniting the flames of revolution. The shot heard round the world signaled the beginning of a long and bloody struggle for independence. The Second Continental Congress, convened in Philadelphia in the midst of war, appointed George Washington as commander of the Continental Army. Washington, a Virginia planter and veteran of the French and Indian War, faced the daunting task of uniting a ragtag collection of colonial militias into a cohesive fighting force capable of taking on the might of the British Empire. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress took the momentous step of declaring independence from Great Britain. The Declaration of Independence, drafted by Thomas Jefferson, proclaimed to the world that the 13 colonies were now free and independent states, no longer subject to British rule. This bold declaration, rooted in Enlightenment ideals of natural rights and self-determination, became a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples around the world. Section 6. A Nation Divided, the Shadow of Slavery. The birth of the United States was both a triumph and a tragedy. While the nation celebrated its hard-won independence and embarked on the experiment of self-government, the institution of slavery cast a long and dark shadow over its future. The Founding Fathers, though committed to the ideals of liberty and equality, grappled with the deeply entrenched system of slavery that divided the nation from its inception. The southern states, heavily reliant on slave labor for their agricultural economies, resisted any attempts to abolish or restrict slavery. The northern states, while some had already begun to abolish slavery, were economically tied to the South through trade and commerce. This fundamental division over slavery would continue to plague the nation, shaping its political, social, and economic landscape for decades to come. Section 7. A Nation Forged Anew, the Fires of Civil War. The election of Abraham Lincoln, a Republican opposed to the expansion of slavery, as president in 1860 proved to be the catalyst for secession and civil war. Southern states, fearing that Lincoln's election signaled the end of their way of life, began to secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The nation was irrevocably divided. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces fired upon Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, marking the beginning of the bloodiest conflict in American history. The Civil War, a brutal and costly struggle that pitted brother against brother, would test the very foundations of the nation. Abraham Lincoln, thrust into the crucible of leadership during this time of national crisis, emerged as one of the nation's greatest presidents. His unwavering commitment to preserving the Union, his eloquence in articulating the ideals of liberty and equality, and his strategic guidance of the war effort made him a symbol of hope and determination for a nation torn apart. The Civil War raged for 4 long years, claiming the lives of over 600,000 Americans. From the battlefields of Antietam and Gettysburg to the siege of Vicksburg and the fall of Atlanta, the nation witnessed unprecedented bloodshed and sacrifice. Through it all, Lincoln never wavered in his belief that the Union must be preserved and that slavery must end. Section 8. Reconstruction and its aftermath. The struggle for equality. In the aftermath of the Civil War, the nation faced the daunting task of rebuilding a shattered South and integrating formerly enslaved people into society as free and equal citizens. Reconstruction, a period of profound social, political, and economic transformation, aimed to heal the wounds of war and create a more just and equitable society. The Reconstruction era witnessed remarkable progress in extending civil rights to African Americans. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution abolished slavery, the 14th Amendment granted citizenship and equal protection under the law to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and the 15th Amendment prohibited the denial of voting rights based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Despite these constitutional guarantees, the road to equality was fraught with obstacles. White Southerners, resistant to change and determined to maintain their social and political dominance, enacted black codes, laws designed to restrict the freedoms of African Americans and relegate them to a position of inferiority. Section 9. The 20th Century and Beyond, a nation in constant motion. The 20th century dawned with the United States on the cusp of becoming a global power. The nation, having weathered the storms of Civil War and Reconstruction, entered a new era marked by industrialization, urbanization, and increasing involvement in world affairs. The Progressive Era, spanning the late 19th and early 20th centuries, sought to address the social and economic ills brought about by rapid industrialization. Progressives fought for workers' rights, women's suffrage, and government regulation of big business. Their efforts led to significant reforms, including antitrust laws, child labor laws, and the passage of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote. The 20th century also witnessed 2 world wars that tested the nation's resolve and reshaped the global order. The United States emerged from World War II as a superpower, playing a leading role in shaping the post-war world. The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, dominated the latter half of the 20th century. The threat of nuclear war loomed large, shaping domestic and foreign policy for decades. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s challenged the legacy of Jim Crow and demanded equal rights for African Americans. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and John Lewis inspired millions with their message of nonviolent resistance and their unwavering commitment to justice and equality. The late 20th and early 21st centuries saw the United States grapple with new challenges, including globalization, technological advancements, and ongoing debates over immigration, healthcare, and climate change. The journey of the United States continues, a testament to the enduring human spirit, the pursuit of liberty and equality, and the ever-evolving story of a nation built on the dreams and aspirations of people from all walks of life.